Good evening. Welcome, everyone. Tonight, thank you for joining tonight's virtual public meeting hosted by Arapahoe County. My name is Roger, and I'll be your moderator tonight as we talk about the county's electric vehicle draft plan. First, let me take a moment to tell you how this meeting will work. This will be an interactive and informative session, and we look forward to your participation. There are several ways to engage with us over the next 60 minutes. If you are viewing online, you can submit questions below the video feed, and we will read those aloud for our panelists to answer. If you have joined us by phone and would like to ask our panel a question, please press *3 on your telephone, and you will be transferred to an operator who will take down some basic information. If you are listening online and would like to view the slides, visit arapahoeco.gov/EV plan. Again, that is arapahoeco.gov/EV plan. We'll try to get to as many questions as possible today after our presentation. Please be aware this meeting is being recorded and will be available on the project website by this Friday on the web page. Before I get into the presentation, let me introduce District 2 Commissioner Jessica Campbell Swanson. Commissioner, go ahead.
Hello, and thank you for having me. I am Commissioner Jessica Campbell Swanson, excited to be here and excited that you all are here with us, joining us for this public meeting. We're glad to have this chance to talk to all of you tonight. Meetings like this are a great way for us to communicate with you and for you all to get involved in county government. Whether you're participating online or on the phone, I genuinely hope that you'll engage in the discussion tonight and learn about how we're working on an electric vehicle plan. This plan supports our county's efforts to advance sustainable development strategies that protect human and environmental health and combat climate change. This will help us make Arapahoe County a diverse and vibrant county where residents and businesses thrive. Our entire Board of County Commissioners wants to make sure our county's transportation network serves our residents while advancing these goals. And with this, we have been doing a study, and we are excited to roll out. And the study and plan that we have, we are taking a proactive approach to electric vehicle planning, and we're excited to share this information with you. It has been a very collaborative process. Arapahoe County has coordinated with our municipal partners, higher education institutions, and transportation and energy agencies. And it ensures that all agencies have this plan on their radar. I'll pass it back to you, Roger, to get us going.
All right. Thank you very much, Commissioner. Before we move forward, we have a question we'd like to ask, and it's easy to participate in this survey. All you have to do is use your telephone keypad to enter the number of your response. If you're participating online, you can enter your response there on the website. So here is the first question. Please tell us the geographical area that best describes where you live in Arapahoe County. Are you in a rural part of the county or live in a suburb? For those who live in the city, select urban. So press 1 for rural, press 2 for suburban, and press 3 for urban. Again, if you live in a rural area, press 1. Sorry about that background noise. Press 2 if you live in a suburban area, and press 3 for urban area. Record your vote now on the phone or online, and we'll share the results with you a little later in the call. And we really appreciate it. We see we've got great representation across the county already. So now let's hear from Commissioner Jeff Baker. And Jeff, introduce yourself and continue on.
Hi, Roger. Good evening to everyone. Thank you for joining us. I wanted to let everybody know that Commissioner Bill Holen has been very instrumental in helping us get this plan, our transportation issues involving EV, electric vehicles. So I want to thank him. We're soon to join the ranks of EV owners. We're going to take delivery of the very first EV for our fleet. Now, our research has shown that this first EV, it will be a van, will reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 75% over the vehicle that it's replacing. And we estimate that the electric van will save the county $15,000 to $18,000 in operational costs over the lifetime of the vehicle. And that's just one vehicle. These are exciting projections. As we have prepared for our foray into fleet electrification, we've had to answer questions about issues of charging station availability, range, weather conditions. These are the things that every EV owner, whether an individual, a business, or a municipality, must address. That's why this EV plan is important. It's a proactive approach. Compiling this plan has been a very collaborative process. As Commissioner Campbell-Swanson mentioned, we've coordinated with our municipal partners, higher education representatives, and transportation and energy agencies. This ensures that all these agencies have this plan on their radar, and it's been an honor to work with them. I'm pleased to be sharing this information to you tonight, and I hope everyone will participate. Remember, if you want to participate, to press *3. Just another couple of things. We have made a commitment to start working for a sustainable future, and EVs are undoubtedly a part of that plan. As more consumers and organizations like Arapahoe County adopt electric vehicles, our municipalities must be ready to meet their charging infrastructure needs. I represent District 3, which includes portions of Eastern Centennial, Eastern Aurora, and rural areas like Watkins, Bennett Byers, Strasburg, and Deer Trail, all of the unincorporated Eastern Arapahoe County. According to the U.S. Department of Transportation, the rate of EV adoption in rural areas is roughly 40% lower than in urban areas. That may have something to do with the range of the vehicles now. And EV charging infrastructure expansion has mostly been concentrated in cities and along major highways. I was part of a ribbon-cutting ceremony a few months ago out in Deer Trail as they opened up, in conjunction with Core Energy, their very first EV charging station. Now, this has resulted in a lot of urban-rural disparities in micromobility adoption as well. And that's why plans like ours are so important. This will help us to close those adoption gaps and will help urban and rural residents, businesses, communities more quickly realize significant economic, environmental, and health benefits from EVs. Thank you again for your participation tonight. I'll turn it back over to Roger.
Thank you, Commissioner Baker. We have a second question tonight and would like you to rate your electric vehicle awareness. It's easy to participate again. Just use your telephone keypad to enter the number of your response. And if you're participating online, just enter your response online. Here's that question. Please rate your electric vehicle awareness. Press 1 if you consider yourself a beginner or are just starting to learn about EVs. Press 2 if you consider yourself an intermediate with a general understanding of how EVs work. And press 3 if you consider yourself an expert with extensive knowledge of EV usage and advances. Thank you for taking the time to share that information. And if you're just joining us, welcome. We'll address questions you submit during the second half of our call. If you're joining by phone, press *3 to ask that question. And if you're tuning in online, submit your question there. If you are listening on the phone and would like to view the slides and graphs, visit arapahoeco.gov/EV plan. Again, that is arapahoeco.gov/EV plan. Our goal tonight is to provide you with an overview of the draft plan of the draft of the Electric Vehicle Action Plan. So we're going to be giving you a lot of information as we move forward. Before we do that, though, we have one more question we'd like to ask, and the third question is about electric vehicle ownership. Here you go. Press use your telephone keypad or enter it online. Press 1 if you already own an EV. Press 2 if you plan on purchasing an EV within 2 years. Press 3 if you are unsure, and press 4 if you do not plan on owning an EV again. So 1 if you already own an EV, 2, if you plan on purchasing an EV within 2 years. 3, if you are unsure. And 4, if you do not plan on owning an EV. So let's get back to the presentation on our call tonight, along with Commissioners Campbell Swanson and Baker, is leadership from Arapahoe County's Public Works and Development and the Electric Vehicle Draft Program team. I would now like to introduce Public Works and Development Transportation Director James Katzer, who will describe the draft plan and its vision. James, thanks for joining us. Go ahead.
So, the purpose of this regional plan is to provide a clear path for the county as electric vehicles become more common in the future. This is a planning document to guide Arapahoe County and its planning document to guide Arapahoe County and its communities towards solutions that support the large-scale transition to zero tailpipe emission vehicles. The plan also develops a common vision for the region that can help be used to identify collaboration opportunities to inform efforts at the local level. Before I move forward, I want to make sure that you do *3 if you want to ask a question, which will be coming up towards the end of the presentation. So why have a regional plan for electric vehicles? The movement of people and goods is inherently regional, crossing boundaries and connecting our communities. Air quality impacts do not abide by jurisdictional boundaries. We want to maximize our collective ability to design and implement large-scale solutions that work for everyone across the region. We also want to leverage funding and avoid the duplication of efforts by our municipal partners or other government agencies. We will now take a time to ask another question about electric vehicle adoption. Once again, we appreciate your participation. What is your biggest obstacle keeping you from leasing or owning an EV? Press 1 for electric vehicle costs. Press 2 for lack of access to charging station infrastructure. Press 3 for no EV fits my needs. Press 4 for vehicle performance. And press 5 for none. Once again, I'll repeat those options and the question. What is your biggest obstacle keeping you from leasing or owning an EV? Press 1 for electric vehicle cost. Press 2 for lack of access to charging infrastructure. Press 3 for no EV fits my needs. Press 4 for vehicle performance. And press 5 for none. So thanks, we see those results coming in, so I really appreciate it. So what are the benefits of electric vehicles? They are a clean transportation mode as tailpipe emissions from internal combustion vehicles contribute to poor air quality. EVs reduce greenhouse gas emissions. EVs also create energy independence and cost stability. They reduce the dependence on oil and gas and help diversify sources of energy used in transportation. Finally, EVs can in some cases cost less to own and operate compared to internal combustion engines vehicles. There are also negative impacts to EVs implementation, and those are captured also in the report if you're interested in looking at those. Through the years, steps have been taken at the federal, state, and local level to account for electric vehicles. The Colorado Energy Office has drafted a 2023 EV plan for the state. The Colorado Department of Transportation has also gotten involved, and they've identified locations throughout the state for fast charging stations along state highways. And if you're on the computer, there's a map on your screen. The 2040 Arapahoe County Transportation Master Plan, which was adopted in 2021, also accounts for EV implementation. Let's now switch gears on how this draft plan came to be. I will now turn the presentation over to Andrea McCarthy, who is with Xcel Energy's Partners in Energy.
Thanks, Jim. And thank you all for joining us this evening. So to get started, we know that this plan is focused on electric vehicles, and that's just kind of the focus of this particular plan, while the county has many other plans looking at other transportation options. So this process started in January of 2022 with a stakeholder committee that consists of representatives throughout the county. And the stakeholders came together to draft this plan through the Xcel Energy's Partner in Energy program. And this group met over 4 times, with the last workshop being held in July of 2023. So what is Xcel Energy's Partners in Energy? It's a collaboration with Xcel Energy to develop and implement energy and electric vehicle plans with communities and regions. It's also an opportunity to engage stakeholders, create strategies, and develop a work plan for success. Throughout the process, stakeholders developed a regional electric vehicle strategies for Arapahoe County communities, and implementation will begin later this year. A list of stakeholders can be found on Arapahoe County's website. And it includes quite a list of the municipalities and other partners. So what exactly is the proposed plan? So let's talk about the vision of the plan, which is that the county will partner to support safe, reliable, innovative, affordable, and equitable electric transportation options that improve air quality. The document outlines why such a plan is needed and the current conditions, and then maps out a vision and strategies. Finally, the plan lays out these strategies on how we need to get there, and then how we'll track progress to ensure that we stay on course. Now, let's move on to the electric vehicle adoption projections. The Colorado Energy Office projects that in 2025, EV adoption, or electric vehicle adoption, will be 4 to 6%, with 21 to 30,000 EVs in Arapahoe County. By 2030, the state projects 10 to 15% of adoption, and 60 to 86,000 EVs will be on Arapahoe County roads. With that many electric vehicles projected in the county, there's going to be a need for sufficient charging ports. And based on a 2021 study, the county will need about 3,100 charging ports by 2030 to serve the projected 940,000 EVs on the road in the state. Arapahoe County will need to significantly increase the number of available charging ports to serve that projected number of vehicles. With these projections and needs in mind, the plan will focus on 4 focus areas and 12 priority strategies to implement between now and 2025. These altogether will strengthen the relationship among Arapahoe County communities and regional partners. The 4 areas of focus for 2024 and 2025. Well, here is a list of the 4 focus areas for 2024 and 2025 and their strategies. We have outreach and education, which will focus on conducting community-wide outreach. The second area of focus is charging infrastructure. A key component to this section is promoting funding for public charging sites by engaging developers to include EV charging in their plans. The third focus area is the electrification of public fleets. This will include recommendations for government, schools, and other agencies to analyze moving their fleet to electric vehicles. And the plan aims to support EV training opportunities for mechanics and technicians, and also first and second responders. The final area of focus is electric multimodal transportation, partnering with regional entities to support electric multimodal options. And multimodal transportation incorporates all modes of transport that people use to get around, and electric multimodal includes electrified transportation. So this includes things such as light rail and electric bikes and scooters. The plan also includes some longer-term focus areas and strategies to consider. And while these are not part of the implementation part of the plan, they are suggestions for further outreach, education, charging infrastructure strategies, and fleet electrification along with that multimodal. So those would be beyond the 2025 strategies. So before we get to the final part of the draft plan, we want to ask another polling question. How important do you feel it is for local governments to support electric vehicles? So press 1 if it's not a priority, 2 if this is a low priority, 3 if it's a priority, 4 for a very high priority, and 5 if you are unsure. So again, how important do you feel it is for local governments to support electric vehicles? 1, not a priority, 2, low priority, 3, a priority, 4, a very high priority, and 5, unsure.
All right. While people are voting, just a quick reminder to press *3 if you'd like to get into the queue. And I think Andrea's going to go on with some implementation strategies for the plan.
Yes, thank you, Roger. So how are we going to implement the plan and achieve those strategies? So how do we work together to make this happen? It'll take coordination and cooperation between the county and its municipal partners and other agencies. The county will coordinate partners and co-lead outreach and lead by example. Municipal partners will co-lead outreach and lead by example. State agencies will administer programs, and regional partners will support outreach, offer technical assistance, and offer other support as needed. The role of the utilities will be to administer their programs. And then what role will Partners in Energy play in the implementation? So Partners in Energy will facilitate meetings and provide project management. We'll provide technical assistance or expertise and provide a connection to Xcel Energy EV program managers. We'll help support distribution of customized joint marketing and outreach materials, and we'll also track and report progress. And now County Transportation Manager Jim Katzer will now wrap up the presentation and explain how you can get involved in this process.
All right, thanks, Andrea. So what are the next steps and how can you get involved in this plan? We would like you to review the draft plan and provide comments by February 15th. The plan will then be revised and be submitted to Arapahoe County Board of County Commissioners in April for adoption. Local communities can then adopt the plan and implement the plan or reference it in other plans that they may have. Once this is done, the county will move into implementing the plan. To comment on the draft plan, go to the project website at www.arapahoeco.gov/EVplan. You can also stay up to date on this plan by going to the website. This ends the presentation, and I will now turn it back over to Roger Sherman to take some questions.
All right, thank you both for a very informative presentation. We would like to now open up the meeting for questions. If you're viewing online, you can submit questions below the video feed, and we will read those aloud for our panelists. Also, if you are participating on Facebook, put a question in the comment section, and we'll try to catch that as well. And again, if you're on the phone and would like to ask our panel a question live, please press *3 on your phone, and you'll be transferred to an operator who will take down some basic information. Before we, let's go. Let's get started. Chase, we're going to go to you first. You are live. Go right ahead.
What's the purpose of focusing more on EVs and less on public transit? Like when you said what's your biggest obstacle when looking for public transit or for purchasing an EV, I just thought it was more of a adding to the problem, putting more cars on an already congested road instead of addressing the root issue.
Hi, Chase. This is Commissioner Jessica Campbell Swanson. And Roger, I'll just jump in and take that one. So, Chase, I absolutely get where you're coming from on this. And this is exactly why we're doing this forum. So please share this stuff online. We want your input because we do have finite resources in the county and as a region, and we want your input to know how we need to prioritize our resources. So the plan can give, does the county go kind of all in on EVs? Do we need to find kind of public-private partnerships because our residents want us to do other things with our dollars as well? Or do we kind of take a step back and we facilitate, but we don't necessarily lead on it all the way with our resources because our residents like us to support use our resources to invest more heavily in public transportation. Now, part of why we are doing a specific plan and holding a town hall for this specifically about electric vehicles, there's two reasons. One, the state has made plans and goals for the whole state to hit. And as part of the state and part of the infrastructure and people travel from Dougco up to Denver through Arapahoe, east, west across the county as well, we recognize that we have a role to play in that. Second, Xcel has stepped up. Obviously, as an energy company, they have an interest in this, but they also are our main utility company in the county. And so they've stepped up to help pull together a plan, and those are resources in a sort of partnership that we think this was a reasonable way to work with Xcel on that. Third, I want to note that we have a master transportation plan that contemplates and incorporates public transportation, micromobility, walkability, bikeability, all of the other things. And so again, this is part of this. We need to know from y'all how you want us to prioritize resources. I will note something in particular about public transportation. We are within the RTD district, and counties that are within the RTD district are specifically constitutionally prohibited from setting up our own transportation district. So we have to work with RTD on that. There is legislation going through the state legislature that would give counties a greater say and have a direct seat at the table on the RTD board. It restructures the RTD board. So pay attention to that, but we are actively engaging with RTD. We have members of our commission on Dr. Cog. I sit on the Denver South board, which works on transportation. And so don't take this as necessarily the county is prioritizing EV over public transportation. Rather, think of this as just a focused town hall about EV as part of our larger master transportation plan. So thanks, everyone. And I know there was a live Levy asked a question like that as well online. So for everyone who's got that kind of type of priority question, that's the answer for that. So thanks all for tuning in, and your input is really, really important.
All right,
that's all I've got, Roger. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Let's hear from Judy next. Go ahead.
Hi. I have a question. I would like to see Arapahoe County and Colorado set up EV charging stations that are powered by solar energy instead of the coal-fired power plants. Is this a priority for Arapahoe County and Colorado?
And let's hear from Commissioner Baker first.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Commissioner Baker and Jim, I think they're going to take your question and try to give you an answer.
Okay. Did they hear my question?
They sure did.
Oh, good. Okay.
I'm wondering if they're muted. Commissioner Baker or Jim, you want to check to make sure you're unmuted?
I'm not muted.
Well, go ahead.
Okay, great. This is Jeff Baker, Commissioner Jeff Baker. Thank you for that question, Judy. Very good question. Nothing's off the table. We're exploring everything. Like Commissioner Campbell Swanson mentioned, we're part of a region. We're part of the Metro District, and we're also part of Colorado. And while I can't say right now that solar energy is fully ready to take that on, I think we all want to see more of the solar energy, wind energies, sustainable energy being used rather than coal-fired power plants to charge these charging stations. As Commissioner Campbell Swanson mentioned, we're part of a large group of people looking at this. The Denver Regional Council of Governments is one of those groups that is studying this in depth, and we have a lot of partners trying to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So that's coming. We're not there yet, but we're going to get there. Hang on.
Jim, do you have anything to add, or should we go on to the next question?
The only thing I would add is that there are also portable sites that we're interested in that do use solar energy. It'll charge a battery, and then it can be used to charge an EV vehicle for more remote sites. So great question, Judy, and thanks again for being here.
All right, let's hear from Jared next. Go ahead.
Hello, my name's Jared. So my focus with this is that I understand that they're looking to bring in about 3,100 charging stations through the county, and they're projecting somewhere around 900,000+ vehicles. But how is the grid going to be capable of that wattage output, including all the other means that are going to increase along with that?
Yeah, thanks, Jared, for the question. Appreciate it. All of the utilities across the country are preparing for the electric grid and anticipating future change. This is something that they do on a regular basis. Every 2 years, the utilities file a plan with the Public Utility Commission that outlines anticipated growth and load changes, along with how the utility will accommodate that load. And so in this example, Xcel Energy would look at what EV growth is expected in Colorado, and as part of that plan, they'll be addressing that in the grid and building out infrastructure where they need to, and also working towards the achievement of kind of net zero carbon emissions in their plan as well.
All right, thank you. Before we take more questions, I'll like to remind you how to stay engaged with this project. You can do this by visiting the project webpage at www.arapahoeco.gov/EV-plan. You can also write and send an email to jkatzer@arapahogov.com, or you can call 720-874-6500. We'll be repeating this information here a little later in the call, but wanted to throw that out there. And again, please send your comments by February 15th so they can be considered before the plan is finalized. All right, let's get back to questions. Next up is Teresa. Go ahead.
Yes, I was asking what's going to be the plan for those who want to learn the trades of being able to take care of all these charging stations and all the rest, because it's going to be very specific. It's different fixing an automobile than it is fixing an electrical vehicle or fixing a charging station. What's the plan for training people to be able to fix those things?
Andrea.
Yes, thanks, Teresa. Great question. We do have in the plan a strategy around training mechanics and technicians. We have a great partner in the Arapahoe Community College, and they already have programs in place that are training folks on electric vehicles, on charging stations, and the auto manufacturers as well have training to be able to take care of those vehicles. And then the electricians are all working on this as well, being trained so that they're able to install and maintain electric vehicle chargers. So it will be a new or kind of added skills to the workforce, and there are a number of partners working on that.
All right. Next up is Gloria. Gloria, go ahead.
Hi. I've been listening, and I don't know a whole lot about it, but I've heard lots of different things, and I'm hearing some things just listening now. So with these EV, and you're going to have all these charging stations all over different states for travel, vacations, and different places like that. And also, you will park these vehicles in your home. Will you have a charge at your home for your VE?
Commissioner Campbell-Swanson.
Yeah, thank you, Gloria, for that question. I think the plan is, yes, to get charging stations in people's homes or in neighborhoods, or in if you've got multifamily at that development. So there are, I think there was a reference earlier to working with developers as we're building new development and adding housing, because we're trying to address our housing crisis as well, to making sure those plans incorporate charging stations. I think eventually there will be a transition from our gas stations to EV stations, and that those EV stations will charge up your car hopefully as quickly, maybe not quite as quickly. It might take a little planning, but we'll see what's there in the future. But the charging stations will be widely available, and then there will be plans to get those accessible to everyone. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. Commissioner William online asked, how do I see the slides? You can go to arapahoeco.gov/EV plan. That's arapahoeco.gov/EV plan. You can view the slides as we're going through, but you probably missed some that were here earlier. Those will be posted on the website, as well as this recording of the event, I think by Friday. Let's go next to Cindy. Go ahead, Cindy.
Okay, I think my question has already been answered, but is this primarily for business vehicles and or residential vehicles too?
Thanks, Cindy, for the question. The plan does include both kind of private vehicles, providing the information and education so that people can make a decision that's right for them, as well as for fleet vehicles in both kind of the private and public sector. Again, providing those resources and education so that folks can make decisions about vehicles that might be a right fit for them.
All right. Forrest is next. Go ahead, Forrest.
Yes, my question is, I'm assuming that we are talking lithium batteries, and I have never to this point heard a good option for disposing of the lithium batteries once they are no longer viable to be used in the automobiles. What is the plan for disposal when the life of the battery is done?
Great question. Jim, you want to take that?
Yeah, Forrest, that's a great question, and of course, all of us are concerned and are interested in the final solution here. You are right that these batteries They do have lithium and they have other elements in them that we want to make sure they're not going right to a landfill. This is where the government agencies and working with the industry have to come up with good solutions. This plan doesn't go into and address that exact solution, but it is a concern of ours, and we will be working with the industry to ensure that happens and that environmental standards aren't violated. But great question, Rod Forrest.
Jim, while we have you, we have a question from Tom on Facebook. He asked, do you include electric bicycles in your EV plan? EV bicycles are evolving rapidly, and Tom suspects the number of riders using EV bikes for daily commuting will rise dramatically. He then states that he also thinks you need to also plan for increased and improved infrastructure for those bicycles. What do you think,
Tom,
Jim?
That's a great question, and we do include expanding micromobility with this, and that relates to EV. And micromobility is using smaller vehicles to transport and get your trips accomplished in the network. And the EV bikes have really opened this up because you can make a longer distance commute more easily on an EV. So Tom, really appreciate the question, and this is part of the solution to reducing congestion on our networks. It's not just EVs, as was pointed out earlier. EVs still have a car on the road, but EV bikes will remove a car from that road and make longer trips possible. And then you're right, Tom. Infrastructure is needed to accommodate the EVs, whether it's putting speed limits on trails, because some of these EV bikes really move fast. So whether it's putting speed limits on or making wider paths or separate paths, these things need to be considered, especially as EVs become more popular.
All right, let's go to Albert on the phone next. Go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, I had more of a comment than a question, but after hearing several other questions come out, it raises a whole lot of, I guess, the role of our local government versus state versus federal, and how they should be either driving or supporting the choices of consumers. I, for one, could not elect to get an electrical vehicle right now because I have different trips that I have to take that are beyond the capacity, and I can't wait for 4 hours at a charging station. So that in mind, that's not a local issue. That's more of a state or federal issue. So what role does Arapahoe really see them taking on going forward in the future, and how are they going to ensure that they're not, or they are, working with the public sector and their choices and what needs to be invested from the public sector side versus the federal and the driving factors to ensure that the future is actually being driven to where we want it to go, which I agree, we need to get away from internal combustion engines. So how is Arapahoe County going to work with these other entities, both public and private?
Commissioner Campbell-Swanson, do you want to take a stab at that?
I would love to. Albert, I don't know if you know much about me, but I was a poli-sci and philosophy major and got my master's in comparative politics and studied environmental law in law school, and I have thought about this stuff a lot. So I love your question. So first and foremost, how do we work with the people? Not to be too cheesy, but this is part of it. So we're doing it now. And I think you probably heard me earlier say, you know, your input on what level of priority, the obstacles, I think that connection to the federal, to other states, and, you know, I want to take cross-country trips. Those are all things that we want to know and need to know because it helps inform a lot of how we will prioritize and the group of people we need to work with. Now, role of county government. So, I mean, as you know, and I don't think you're debating this, but government has historically been involved with transportation infrastructure, how individuals travel, the provision of energy, the protection of the environment, and electric vehicles hit on all four of those. And I think you know, and you sound like you totally understand that there is a federal, state, and local aspect to this. And even within, if you just think about roads and you think about transportation and street signs and all of that, even though roads are, you need them all over the country to be able to travel across the country, we handle those on a local level. And so I think following that same distribution of power across for transportation responsibilities, EVs play exactly into that same model. And so that's why I think there is a role for Arapahoe County to play here. Also, Arapahoe County, we have, I think, 9 different cities, 13 different cities, 9 school districts. So when we're talking about public buses or school buses and public transportation becoming EV and how you go from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, that's the role of the county as well. And so how we will work on whether we're driving or supporting individual consumers' choices, I think that's where these goals come in. And right now, government is in a place of rebates or tax credits for electric vehicles. I think at a certain point, obviously that's where goals and emissions goals come in. I agree that we also need to be looking at public transportation and a whole slew of public options. So that people can really have a choice with this stuff. So I think your questions are very lined up with everything that we're talking about and looking at, and society evolves and changes. And so we are responding to what we need to do for transportation to protect the environment and what the obstacles that you have as a consumer and as an individual and one of our residents is very important. So I hope that answered your question. I think your question is on the money. We're thinking right there with you, but we do have a role to play. So thank you very much.
Thank you both. Let's go to Thomas next. Thomas, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Just so you don't think I'm ignorant, I joined this late, so I was at least 15 minutes to 45 minutes into the program. But so maybe this has been addressed. My concern is everybody's wanting to look at the electric and all. Xcel is having an extreme big problem with providing electric. They, we have outages all the time, and sometimes they're for days long, not including the fire up in the hills where they were without electricity for God knows how long. But anyhow, my to try and get to this point is we are already set up for gasoline stations. Yes, we have complaints about gas prices, but at least it fluctuates. At least when it goes up, right now you know it's going to come down. And, it depends on world, whatever's going on in the world, or pockets. But, so are we really thinking this out? And I'm sure you all are. I'm just a little concerned about it. And just to throw in, I'm a retired RTD employee in supervision, and from what I've heard about Arapahoe County, you guys seem to be working well with RTD, and so I bless you for that. And thank you.
Thomas. Jim, do you want to respond?
Yes, Roger. Thanks, Thomas, for the question, and it is a very good question, and we've asked that very same question to Xcel, and you heard Andrea's answer earlier that Xcel puts their plans out to provide energy, and it's reviewed often. So we're gonna continue to ask Xcel to, as EV becomes more and more popular and used in the network and in Arapahoe County, that we need to make sure that the power is provided is dependable. Also, we pointed out that EVs are joining and displacing the internal combustion engine, which those aren't going to go away completely. Maybe eventually as we march on, but this is a slow progress to becoming to adding more and more EVs to the network. So it's going to be slow. Not all the gas stations were built at one time. Those progressed in their infrastructure and the number of gas stations. So EV charging stations will do the same. As demand increases, charging stations will be built. And you're right to point out, how does the grid perform as more and more EV stations charging stations come on board. So we'll continue to ask Xcel to provide that energy and continue to work with them. A great question, Tom.
Thank you, Jim. We have a couple questions that came in online, one on Facebook, one online, and they're similar. It says EVs will be a critical component of our future transportation infrastructure and will be essential to fighting climate change. However, they are not the only solution. What are we doing to increase our light rail, bus lanes, bike lanes, and walkability?
Yeah, Roger, I'll go ahead and take that question. And Thomas, I appreciate your work at RTD and the acknowledgement of the county working with RTD. We'll continue to do so in the future. And this question is spot on. EVs aren't the only solution here. They still have a vehicle on the road, still causing congestion, and that's why the EV micromobility and multimodal component is really important. Also, the light and bus lanes are also important. The county is going to be conducting a micromobility and transit study here shortly, and that'll be kicked off here, we're hoping, in March, and that's going to address this. How do local governments help RTD to provide transit, multimodal, and micromobility solutions to the community? The county has a long history of building bike lanes and building pedestrian facilities along our roads, and that's just a standard that we do. We joined with Open Spaces in making this happen. We just put a project online, which is ILIF, from Quebec to Parker Road, where we added a beautiful, two beautiful bike lanes and also a multi-use path on the south end. Hope you can visit that sometime. But you're exactly right. EVs aren't the only solution here. We need to have a balanced approach to solving our transportation problems.
Thank you, Jim. Let's go next to Margin. Margin, you're live. We only have a couple minutes, so let's keep this as short as we can. Go ahead.
Thank you for my call. My question is that, considering there is quite a bit of material out there, like Zero Point Energy, that actually is very clean energy, and that there are 6,000 patents are in patent office waiting for it to be passed. Yet we're not focusing on that. And yet we're trying to push for these electric cars that they don't have a long lasting. The effect of creation of these cars are extremely hard on the environment as far as the mercury content goes. God forbid, if they get in a car accident, cleaning that environment is extremely hard, not considering the fact that electromagnetic fields of these cars are harmful to the health of the individuals that are using that. And yet we're so focused. There's no science that backing this up. As a matter of fact, Tesla has this written on their pages. I used to have buying Tesla, and it says it on the 4th or 7th page that is harmful to you. And yet we see the government pushing to push these cars and taking our possibilities away. Why can't we just promote for the individuals that they do want to buy these cars and let them do? And then if you want to talk about the harmness of environment, let's talk about that. What about the chemtrails that on a daily basis is being dumped on us, and then we don't still know who is dumping this on us and how it's affecting our environment, our bees, insects, and birds, and yet nobody talks about that. Yet we're going to take our vehicles away from us and giving us this option as this is an option of educating us. I don't think anybody is taking that away from you. Anybody that wants to go get an electric car, I don't think anybody is stopping them.
Commissioner Campbell-Swanson.
Yeah. Hey, Marjan, I feel you. And the thing is okay, so we, as you noted, our transportation is harming our environment. And I think people started, first of all, oil and gas is a non-renewable energy source. So people have identified a long time ago that we need to start looking for renewable energy sources. No single renewable energy source is at the point where it can supply all of the energy we need, right? So EVs are one option. I would like to reiterate that this town hall is for hearing from you all. So thank you so much for tuning in and letting us know your passion and your perspective around this matter. We will record, this whole thing is recorded. We will make sure that your comment is included. I will say, as somebody who is also very skeptical of EVs and very reticent to force them on anyone, we do need government coordination to make major shifts in our social behavior and how we get around and travel. And so I think where we are right now as a county is looking at and genuinely asking y'all, how much do you want us to invest in EV charging stations and that infrastructure? Do you want it to be entirely privately funded, which has costs? Do you want taxpayer dollars to go to it, which has different costs, right? And so really genuinely, your comments on this are very, very important. I absolutely hear you on everything else. I mean, we could go into all of it. I studied environmental law. I ran on sustainable development. Sustainable development is part of our county strategic plan. So, knowing that we don't have much time left, we hear you, and I thank you for your comments, and they will absolutely be considered. Thank you so much.
All right, let's hear from Laura next. Go ahead.
Hi. This kind of just goes off of what the young lady ahead of me said, the councilperson. Why is the county government involving themselves in what should be a private activity, and that is establishing charging stations? I don't know of any gas station that is owned by the government. However, you guys are trying to own EV stations. I don't get it.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I really appreciate that, Laura. So I think when we talk about charging stations, there's a lot of different kind of business models that go along with that. It's not necessarily government owned. There are a lot of private entities that own charging stations. A lot of charging stations are going to be in people's homes. They'll own that as part of their house and their electrical themselves. So this is really a plan that's looking at all the different ways that EV charging can be installed and how businesses, large and small, can install charging stations on their own property or on their own parking lots and encourage folks. It might encourage folks as an amenity to come to their location to charge their vehicle. So I hope that kind of answers a little bit about the charging station model and the different ways that the county can just promote some education and resources to those entities that might be interested in installing those.
All right, let's go next to Brian. Brian, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm an owner of EVs. I've actually owned 4 EVs over the last 12 years, and I've driven cross-country, sometimes up to 900 miles in a day with an EV, so I know you can go cross-country with them. My question is, there are already a number of for-profit commercial charging networks across the country, such as ChargePoint, Electrify America, and Blink. Has Arapahoe County reached out to them as to how a public-private partnership between Arapahoe County and these charging station networks can promote electrical vehicle charging stations throughout the county?
Yeah, Brian, that's a great question. I hope you saw that map earlier of the states. I think they're called NEVI system where there's some charging stations along state highways. So that's a great start. I appreciate your question, and as Andrea mentioned, there are different models that we need to consider. So we'll take this input and consider it and implement it as we see fit. So once again, appreciate that feedback.
Yeah, and Brian, this is Commissioner Jessica Campbell Swanson. I just want to say from an elected position that we absolutely will be looking at all the kind of public-private partnerships, all the funding mechanisms. And again, please submit your comment. I mean, that was a comment technically, but please, anything more that you have to say, please send them via email through the comment form. Those are all things that we will be looking at going forward. Thank you for that comment.
Okay, next up is Loretta. Loretta, go ahead with your question.
I think my question was already asked, and that was about the hazardous waste, because the EPA said, spent lithium is hazardous, and so I think you already answered that. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
I guess I could add just a little bit to that, Loretta. Okay, thanks. We do know through the federal government that they are underway with a number of different research and pilot programs where they're looking to recycle lithium batteries because the materials, even though the battery at one point kind of loses its ability to charge fully, the materials within that battery are still usable and can be reused and recycled to build additional batteries, so that most of the material going into lithium batteries will be recycled material. And there has been a lot of investment in the private sector to work on this as well. So I think that'll be a continued kind of development that's happening in the space and in the industry. So thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. We've got an online question that came from Carol, and it's a good one. It's, are all charging stations going to be high capacity or slow charge?
Yeah, that's a great question, Carol. And it kind of depends a little bit on where the charging station is going in, who is owning that station, and kind of what their reasons are, and how kind of a number of factors that go into that. So we know that fast charge stations are really important along the highways and travel corridors. As Jim mentioned earlier, the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Plan that all the states are working on are building out those fast charge stations along travel corridors. And then you have other places that may, like at movie theaters or other kind of retail places, may expect a customer or client to be there a little bit. So they may have a charger that's at a level called a level 2 charger, which has a little bit slower charge. But because someone is going to be at that location for a little while, they'll be able to charge their vehicle. So it'll be a mix of these different types of charging stations depending on kind of a use case and the needs of those using those charging stations. So great question. And that'll be kind of continued planning and evolving as I think the charging stations are put in. Thanks.
Thank you. As a reminder, we will post a copy of this recording and the slides to the website within the next 24 hours or so. We have time for one more question this evening. There have been some really great ones, and we appreciate all of the engagement and interest in this topic. Todd submitted this question online. Most new electric vehicles can go over 200 to 300 miles on a charge. What size chargers are you going to recommend be public? Telsa can charge you from almost empty to full in 20 to 30 minutes. Who'd like to take that?
Yeah, I can take Todd's question. This is Andrea. Thanks for that question. And kind of going back to that previous answer about it depends a little bit on the use case of that charging vehicle. Folks who are charging at home can charge kind of in longer time frames. Many folks charge overnight, and so they don't need that quick charge necessarily. They can park their car and they're in their at their home for maybe 8 hours overnight, and they can charge during that time with kind of those slower charges. But then again, when you're on the road and you need that fast charge, that's where those DC fast chargers come in. And you can get pretty much from a 0 to 80% of your battery in about 20 minutes. And I think as chargers continue to be rolled out, that some of those slower chargers will be replaced with the faster chargers. If you're not aware, Tesla has now begun to open up their charging stations as well to other vehicles and other manufacturers, and so that will just increase that network even more and make that more accessible to more folks in different EVs. So thanks for that question, Todd.
All right, thank you very much. One last note, Gina asked again if participants can access this recording. She'd like to share it with others. We'd love it if you'd share it with others. It'll be posted on the county's website at arapahoeco.gov/EV plan, and we'll get that up in the next 24 hours. We want to thank you very much for all the good questions tonight. This does conclude our virtual public meeting. On behalf of Commissioners Campbell Swanson and Baker and your EV project team, thank you for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your evening.